Thank you, everybody. I'm so glad to see smiling faces, and it's February. The snow is melting. Spring is technically here, according to nature. We don't have to wait till March. I was delighted to be asked to talk about how I've gotten rid of plastics on my farm. It has been a tremendous learning experience. I can tell you that. There is no way I would have been able to do that without family support for some of my crazier ideas, or support from my guests. I don't have customers at my nursery, we have guests. And without their support and saying, well, how are you going to do that? And what if you do this? And maybe you could do this, or this isn't working. And that is probably the biggest thing. I often say that we have a small farm, a small nursery, but we are big on moxie. We have a lot of creativity, and the folks that come to the farm are just bursting with great ideas. So I would literally not be here without that support. So to everybody who's here, who's been to the farm, thank you so much. You are my angels. So let's see if I can work the clicker. So
Hang on.
yep, go ahead.
Do something.
Go ahead.
Try that. Try it now.
Try it now. Yay, flowers. So a question I'm often asked is, especially among other flower farmers. So usually a flower farm is growing plants like zinnias, snapdragons, sunflowers, cultivated flowers. And I could not, when I first started the farm, could not find anyone that was doing what I wanted to do. So I literally had to, again, look outside the box and create it for myself. The farm I wanted to be, because of an experience I had in January many years ago, where it was -10 out, and found a little bunch of dried grass in a perfect circle. How often do you see a perfect circle in snow? And went over and saw little birdie tracks and bunny tracks, and I could barely breathe in my Carhartt suit and my wool blanket over my head to go get the mail at dawn. And discovered that I said, whatever that is, I have to grow it. I have to put more of that in the garden. And I had abandoned that garden, and I found out it was New England asters.
Oh, yeah.
So I ran into the house, looked it up online, and found the Wild Seed Project. And unfortunately for my family, I went kind of crazy. and got dived right in, and I've never looked back. So the farm, I grow and share native plants and flowers following what I call an earth first practice. And some people might call that regenerative, which is very popular now, of course, because it's a great idea. But I use earth first because when I harvest flowers, if there's a bee or a spider, or like the purple coneflowers, the echinacea, gets the little crabs, I call them little white crabs, ghost crabs. I don't pick that flower. I actually talk to the plant and say, okay, you're busy. I'll come back. It's all right, I'll come back. I'm not supposed to have that one. And I'll go do something else, and I'll come back and there's nobody there. So you'll often, if you come to the farm, you will hear me talking about plants as if they were people, and they are. They definitely respond, and they're much smarter than I am. So I listen to them. I have 4 acres. I have a very old farm, as you can see in this middle picture here. This is my 200-year-old barn that me and a couple teenagers rescued a part of last year. You can see there's dried flowers hanging. That's where all the fun is happening now. It's great to have. I figure I am the tender. I am to tend this property, heal it from anything. It used to be an old dairy farm, and slowly bring it back. I'm very fortunate that the farmers there, they're in the records and stuff, there's no pesticides that were ever used. They were old school, so I'm very, very fortunate about that. When we tilled, I didn't know how far back they had gone, because in 1800, 4 acres is a lot, and it was much more than that back then. But when we tilled one of the areas, we found an old lamb's bell. It's a copper lamb's bell, and it's just precious. I love it. The goal is to turn it into a giant bird feeder, and I'm not kidding you. I have a 60-foot pine tree laying in the meadow because it feeds birds. It's the cornerstone of the farm, along with 4 old maple trees. So we call them the Four Sisters. I'm also, you'll find me also removing invasive species. I have many. Which is fun because it's another learning opportunity. That's what I tell them as I cut them down and burn them. So I love sharing the beauty of native flowers with people who maybe never seen a flower in a vase, or if anybody here's gotten my gnomes, you'll see dried cone flowers in their crowns and things. And that's what I love doing. It's just phenomenal. So more flower pictures because it's February and we need them desperately. So this is one of the gnomes with dried flowers, a flower crown. So what I grow is I follow nature's lead now. I grow 90% native plants and flowers. I grow rebels. I call them rebels because they're not native, but they're friendly. They're not invasive. They behave themselves. Probably because I'm constantly cutting them, so they never get a chance to reseed. If a non-native plant is a little aggressive like Cosmos, you'll find me out there in September whacking them right back and saving the seeds for the following year to keep them under control. I try very hard to grow local ecotypes. So in the summer, I have limited hours because I'm actually outside trying not to get poison ivy. So I try to grow local ecotype, and I only take, a friend of mine came with me one time and said, there's all these seeds for this goldenrod. Don't you want to fill like a big brown paper bag? No, I only need a handful. That's all I need is a handful. And then of course organic, and I grow with the seasons. So you won't find hoop houses on the farm. Plants need to look, when you buy them in April or May, they need to look like it's April or May, not July. I have learned the hard way. I don't think it's for my farm and how I grow. I don't think it's good for the plant. And of course, all the floral designs, including the 6-foot gnomes, there's no metal, no plastic, no foam. Even arrangements, I have a wedding to do in June, and that will have not even a flower froggen. It will all be natural. So that they can take them and put them into their garden and create a habitat with that mini arrangement. Plants are all the plants now. This was so hard. All the plants now are grown without plastics. I started without NP, which was a learning curve. But the plastics, oh, I gotta tell you, it was hard. So now all the plants are grown from seed without any plastic. They are taken home and shared without any plastic. I have one landscaper, to be fully transparent, I have one landscaper that we are still, this is the year, we are committed that this is the year we won't be doing the plug trays, and she brings them back and we just keep reusing them. This is the year that we stopped doing that. So that is like, I can't tell you how huge that is. We're so super excited. So the how it started was that when I first started the nursery, I bought 300 black plastic pots that you can see over here. I had a really bad camera at the time, and you can see the plastic plant tags. I would reuse everything, and I felt okay about that. It was okay because I'm washing them out like my buckets, and everything is fine. I had plastic carriers. I had the little 6-packs for really finicky people, plant people. I had the hoop house, which I'll show you a picture of, with plastic on it, with plastic landscape fabric underneath. I had landscape fabric out in my field that killed the weeds. I had frost cloth. And because that was how it was done. Whenever I asked another nursery, how do I do this? It was, well, you gotta get the pots, and you gotta get the pallets, and you gotta get the little seed packs. So it was just incredible. And then Big Horticulture found me. I don't know how they found me. The catalog started coming, and they were filled with plastic. I mean, tools with plastic, you name it. And deals, oh my gosh, the deals. I could have gotten a plastic pot for like 10 cents. I even rescued plastic pots. We drove all the way out to Buffalo to rescue 1,000 pots from Grossman's nursery auction that someone else had rescued. She had another 10,000 in her pool. And that's when I started going, you know, even in the beginning, I'm like, I don't want to have to buy plastic because I'm cheap. And I don't want to use this plastic. It's never going to go away. But the easier way that everyone told me, just you have got a big enough problem, girl, with growing native plants. You can't even grow a marigold. You need to focus on that. So I did. I did. And it was a great success if I wanted to keep with that. The problem was what the plants told me on my farm. This is just my experience on my farm. The plants in the pots told me they were unhappy because the plants that I had planted as seedlings and put right into the field were twice the size. Same seed, same growing medium, everything the same. The only difference was I put the seedlings out in the garden and they just went bonkers. They were healthier, they had less pest pressure. The other thing was that the heat in the plastic pots, they were constrained no matter how many times, like within 8 weeks, I'm bumping them up. It's like, you know, feeding a bird. It's just constant. And the other thing was I had poor soils around those plants. They often I wouldn't get to them in time. If you ever bought a plant and it was root bound and you thought you could rescue it and then it died anyway, heartbreaking. I also found that I had more weeds, a lot more weeds with the landscape fabric. The water waste, all the water waste, it broke my heart. I have a background that deals with the history of water and water rights. So I know how much water that was really for the environment. And it just, you know, pulls out of those trays and pulls out of the pallets and where does it go? I had hot plants and hot sun that were supposed to like heat, didn't like those plastic pots. And the real kicker was what was in my soil. The bed that I did with landscape fabric had no worms. It had no what I call roly-polies. There was no microcidium. There were snakes. Much to my family's great dismay, because nobody in my family likes snakes, but because of the heat on the plastic. But there was no bug life. There was no life in that soil. And it took me 2 years to heal that soil with cover cropping and compost and manure. Took a long time. So the basics of the plastic problem, I could go down the rabbit hole of plastic science. I'm not going to do that to you because that is just too much. So this lower image here is a really good one. This on the lower left, this is a sample of what my nursery looked like. It was a small area in front of the barn. I had the pallets and stuff, and everybody was in plastic pots in shade. I had a shade cloth over it. They were healthy, they were fine, but they were surrounded by plastic. I know that you might not think that plastic in a nursery is a problem, but if you would all bear with me for one moment and close your eyes, I want you to remember the last time you went into a larger nursery. And you see all the beautiful plants, the birds are chirping, it's a beautiful spring day, and you're going to fill that cart. I want you to imagine what that nursery looks like without the plants. And see all the plastic that's there. It is very hard for a nursery to grow without, especially a larger nursery, to grow without those plastics. And it's a lot of plastic. That doesn't include the plastic that comes in the bags, the potting mix to fill all those things with. And that's what it looks like. This is what we get left with, this image up on the far right. That's what we get left with the plastic. It's not our fault as gardeners, it's not nursery's fault. It's just this idea that, oh, we gotta do something about this. Problem is that there are over 4 billion containers. This is just the pots. Just the pots every year in the United States alone. It's just in the United States. From seed sowing to retail sales. So from the little tiny plugs that get bumped up every 10 weeks into a gallon-sized pot. And then of those, this is in 2020, so it's important to note that this is pre-COVID. These figures are from pre-COVID, before the gardening rush came on. There are 500 million new black plastic containers, pots, made with virgin petroleum. And that's just the United States. 98% of that ends up in incinerators and landfills. Do you know guess where the other 2% goes? No, your shed. Where's the shed? What's the pile? We all got them. Because we know we can share them. We can do something with them. And then American gardeners, we bring home on average 300 and this just number just made me, when I saw it, I went, really? 350 million potted plants and annuals and perennials. That's not the trees, the shrubs, the other little things, and the pots to grow more plants in. Yeah, that's a big numbers. And that's from a wonderful study for Horticultural Society. And this study is one of the reasons we're seeing a little bit more eco-friendly pots being made for horticulture, but it's not anywhere near enough. And there's still plastic in those pots. Grow bags are plastic. They're plastic. So that's one of my hot topics. I guess I'll stay away from that. So the problem with the plastics, I'll move this forward just a little bit, is that plastics, I see this they'll degrade. What we really mean is that they are just breaking up. They're just getting smaller. They never, ever degrade. They just get smaller where we can't see them, so we think they degrade. They break into macro, micro, and nanoplastic, which you can't see, but your plants can. They enter into the plants through water, the soil, the air, even with pollinators, which we'll get to. And also impacts our soil composition, water absorption in soil, the chemicals in it. This is the dirty stuff that's going to make everybody sad. Don't get sick. It's okay. The chemical composition in the leaf and the root systems it impacts that are vital for obtaining nutrients from the surrounding environment. So that it's taking up water that has plastic in it, and it's coming through and staying in the plant. It impacts the whole ecosystem because everybody eats in our gardens. And if there's plastic in the plants and there's plastic in the water and the soil, it's going into everything. It also impacts plant hormone regulation, which stops physical growth and disrupts the whole health of not only the planet, but also us and the animals who call our gardens home. It reduces photosynthesis, it's been shown, which is really incredible because it alternates the chlorophyll. And these are just two examples. This is those grow bags that everybody loves because they come in pretty colors. But it's more than that. It's more than those smaller plastics in the pots. It impacts the food chain and the ecosystem, but it's been shown in the water and the soil as they're taken up. They're impacting the pollen. There is nanoplastics present in pollen and nectar. And as bees and our pollinators go through the air, they are picking up plastics, which also amazing. I just read the study last year that impact the behavior of our pollinators. And their immunity. It's just astounding. The same things that impact us are impacting our wildlife. So before my breakup with plastic, there were a couple things that happened that pushed me over the edge. One of them was one of my wonderful guests. When I first started out, I came home and someone dropped off 10 30-gallon bags of plastic pots in my driveway. I don't grow that many plants. If you've been to my farm, you know I don't grow millions and hundreds of plants. And I didn't know what to do with them. What am I going to do with them? I ended up donating them to a friend of mine who has a nursery. The other thing that happened was that, we have these plastic pots, we have these trays, we have up here on the left, this is bird netting to keep the birds off your berries. I had that for years in my barn, hidden in the barn. We found it, we put it outside. They impact how wildlife moves around our gardens. This poor little guy, he must have been having a bad day. This is a low moth caterpillar. If you've ever seen them, they're absolutely beautiful. And we had the pile of this, it's probably only one roll, because I said I'm cheap. We had this roll and we found him on there. And we carried him over and put him over in the leaves and said, we're sorry. We came back, we went out to lunch and we left the pile because I was gonna put it in a box and keep it in the barn instead of taking it to the landfill. I have the closet where nothing, no plastic comes out, ever. And when we went to move it, there was a snake caught in it, bleeding and dying. And the two teenagers that I had with me last summer, they were wonderful, wonderful young ladies. Instead of saying, oh, no, they go and grab a pocket knife. And they freed him and they made sure he was okay. They put him in a little box in the barn, took care of him, and off he went. He's very happy. So that was the thing where I said I made the right decision for not only for my garden, but for my farm. And I've never looked back. I've never felt bad about just ditching the plastic. So ditching them, what I did was I looked, because there was nowhere I could find a plastic-free nursery anywhere. Not even one in the UK. One guy named Sam in the UK who was so wonderful to talk to. He said, go for it. You don't know what we're doing. We're just going to make it up as we go along, like any good recipe. So that kind of stuck with me and gave me a little bit of courage. And because this was in the beginning, this is only in year 2 of my nursery. So I looked to the past. And I went, well, before plastics, what did we do? Well, we used paper. When you went to a nursery, they had the plants growing in wood trays. They scooped them up and they wrapped them in pretty paper. A bunch of pretty paper with the name of the plant written on the paper. Oh my goodness, how much easier is that? That fed the soil, things that feed the soil, that nature always gets first pick when there's no plastic pots involved. The pollinators, I notice on the nursery table, there are more bugs on my nursery table than ever before. It's wonderful. But it means that we have to be a little creative, right? Which is good for our brains, so good for our brains, and so good for our children and our communities, because they see somebody doing different. And difference is what the brain is attracted to. We want to know, how does this work? What's going on over there? So from that whole center of an earth first mindset, that's how I weeded out the plastic. Now what you really want is, how did I actually do it? Because it was hard. There were days where I cried because I couldn't figure out something, which involved a coffee or a cup of tea and a cookie. So what I did was I had the problem of like all of you, the pots that I had existing. What the heck am I going to do with that? Like I said, I gave those to a wonderful friend. I gave them also some to a community organization here in Syracuse that was helping children grow vegetables in their home and would reuse the pots every year. That was wonderful. I shifted to field grown plants. So hardly any pallets. Pallets that I have are used for baby plants. I have a lot more space in the barn, which is great. I can paint furniture, maybe, we'll see. So everything goes from seed. So I'll sow the seeds, they get the little baby plants, those go out to the field, they grow up, and then the following spring, they get dug up, wrapped up in either burlap, craft paper, wax paper that's plastic free. You can find it plastic free. And then they go home. That's their job. Their job is to go home and be fruitful and multiply. And all the annuals are grown in wool pots, so that's easy. And here was the big one that really stumped me for months. I couldn't figure out how to price my plants. Now I know there's a nursery person up here talking about money. Well, I've never been in it for the money. I just want to be able to pay my property tax so I can keep growing plants. How was I going to do that? So when I had the plastic pots, it was easy. It was 6 pack, quart, gallon, okay, maybe a 2 gallon. And that was really easy, because you could look at what other nurseries are doing, right? But there's no pot anymore. Some plants are gonna be big, some are gonna be small. And it was a real stumper. It created a lot of Earl Grey tea. And I decided, well, what would be fair? Would be by age. So now plants are priced on how many periods of dormancy have they gone through? And that has been a lot easier. The benefit of that is that they're more affordable for everyone. The other benefit is that I don't sell big plants. I need a shirt or sign at the farm that says we don't have big plants and we do not lie. Because because I have found in my experience has been that a younger plant that is under 2 years old is going to be more aggressive in their growth when you plant them. They just want to live, damn it. They want their lattes and they want to behave themselves and feed butterflies. So I don't grow 3-year-old plants. I will often be asked, I don't. And then I refer to one of my other fellow nurserymen who have older plants. I'm all about watching your plant grow and see the process, so you can really appreciate it when it gets to be 4 years old and it's 7 feet tall, like that way Anna says approved. I also had to consider about with getting rid of the plastic was I looked at every single season in my garden. Where is the plastic? Where am I most reliant on it? And okay, how can I get rid of it? How can I replace it? What if I didn't have plastic? So when you go to buy a hanging basket, for example, this was the stumper for this year. I love hanging baskets. I love fuchsia. I get one every year from my local nursery lady. And how can I get rid of that plastic? Because I want to grow my own fuchsia. I'm sorry, Karen. I'm growing my own fuchsia this year. And that idea came that, well, why can't I make a wreath like I make the grapevine wreaths, put dogwood or something in there for the base, and then stuff it with moss or even better, wool, and then put the soil in there. And then at the end of the season, the fuchsia is going to die anyway. I can take the whole thing, plant it in the garden, and maybe the willow and the dogwood will grow into a plant that I can put out in the field. See, get the plastic out of there, you have to get really creative and weird like me. The other thing as a gardener, I would say, the thing that I embraced the most was being imperfectly perfect. And when you come to the farm, and I can see the smirks, the farm is imperfectly perfect. There are no rows of plants waiting to go home. They are out in the field doing their job, feeding soil, feeding pollinators, and it's imperfectly perfect. It's how nature should want it. And if I can get rid of those darn invasive species, it'll be great. And learn as we grow, right? So winter sowing. Who knows this wonderful lady? I got too excited and I hit the button. So winter sowing is my favorite soapbox to get on. Who's winter sowing? Oh, yes. It's so much fun, especially in the north where we get cold winters. We need something with soil so desperately as gardeners. But winter sowing in the plastic jugs and the trays and the soil isn't really winter sowing. If you've ever winter sown and gone out and found that your tomatoes did not germinate and grow, it's because they rotted in the soil. They're not meant for it. They don't need cold stratification. And that's what winter sowing really is. And you don't need, once you know that, it's about preparing the seed for germination. Winter sowing becomes this whole other ballgame. You don't need jugs, trays, or I don't know where this trend came from. The Ziploc bags on skewers. Oh my goodness, I have no idea. It doesn't require soil. And this is my permission. Stop using seed starting mix. There's no life in it. There's nothing for your plant once it germinates to tap into and feed. The soil that you put your seed in is like mother's milk. It's going to transform how that plant will grow for the rest of its life. My little sideline there. And look at how does Mother Nature winter sow her seeds? Monarda seeds are shed usually in August, where they germinate and grow really tiny, and they overwinter as little tiny babies. you know, look at what Mother Nature is doing. Now, since I gave up the plastic, I bet you're wondering, how the heck do I winter sow seeds? Well, I told you, I'm cheap, and there's a reason. I'm kind of a lazy gardener in the best sense. So winter sowing at my farm takes place in January, but it also takes place sometimes in August. All depending on when I'm sowing the seeds for next year's garden. And I do this even for my own gardens. The winter sowing is not done with fighting with the knife or the scissors and cutting myself and having to run to the bathroom for a Band-Aid. It's done right at the table with only 4 things: a case of mason jars, some vermiculite or coarse sand, a big pitcher of water, and that's it. Some masking tape and a marker. That's it. Put on good music. I drink tea. I eat cookies. This is what I do. That's where you'll find me. You don't need any soil. The really thing I love about it is that it has taught me so much more about what a seed needs and what that species need than I ever would have learned by putting it in some tray and walking away and leaving it outside for the mice to eat. It takes up less space, so you're not having to go outside in the snow and put everybody in rows. And it's easy for beginners and children and everyone really. And you don't have to worry about your seeds rotting or mice snacking on those seeds anymore. Because this is how you do it. Are you ready? So this image here on the lower right-hand side, these are my seeds. These are, who are you people? These are early sunflowers. I'm too excited about sharing this big deal. So there's my vermiculite up in the top left. There's my little glass pitcher. There is the cap for the jar and the marker. It is 1 part seed, no matter how many seeds you have, even if you have a little pinch, 1 part seed to 2 parts coarse sand or vermiculite. Mix in the water. With the label, I label only 1 seed. Listen to me. 1 seed on the table at a time. Don't do what I've done with 5 to 10.
Oh, no.
Instant field mix right there. And you just mix it up dry, shake it up, which is a lot of fun. Shake it up. And then put the water in until it's damp. The soil is damp. Put the lid on it. Put it in the refrigerator or out in the garage, somewhere it's going to be out of light and in the cold. In the spring, who here eats bagels with cream cheese? Okay. The schmear technique is going to come handy. You're going to be experts. You just take your butter knife or your wood. I usually have a wood tongue depressors, which are a wonderful thing for gardeners, and just smear it on wherever I'm putting. If it's a terracotta pot out in the garden, or the wool pots or the soil blocks, or the wooden trays, I just smear it in. I mist it in, and I walk away. And I give a little prayer, please somebody help the seed. And they do wonderfully. And that's what I do, cases of them in January. And I have incredible germination rates. The one thing I will tell you to not do, don't take your jars and put them in the sunlight on a warm spring day and leave them in the sun. They're all gonna germinate. They'll have little sprouts in there screaming at you and giving you the stink eye. But if that happens, just take them out, spread them around, they'll be fine. I have a beautiful patch of New England asters that went that way. They're just absolutely stunning. It's very thick. So I know you're wondering about the seed sowing. How do you get them actually to sow and grow? So I have 2 ways. Well, technically 3. It depends on the species. This is coming, know what you are sowing. You want to do, I do soil blocks, which are these wonderful things, which are up here. These are soil blocks. And what they do is there's no peat. They air prune. They are super easy to use. So they're like a little block. Can you all see that? You can come up after and see them. You just smush and push. And that's it. And then you put your seeds in here. Wonderful. The benefit is that they air prune themselves. You know where you get a pot and you go to a nursery and we get our wonderful pot and it's the circling. and strangling its poor self, and it can't get nutrients, and it's starting to look, pretty rough. There's none of that with soil blocks or wool pots or wood trays, because they have the room they need. They get air pruned. They also have the oxygen they need. They're able to take up nutrients much faster. I can have soil blocks that are this high, plants this high in here, these little tiny blocks. And instead of going out with your shovel, I said I was lazy, right? In the best sense. Instead of going out with your shovel and having to put in this big gallon or 2-gallon pot, you're going out with your finger, doop, sticking it in, pushing it in, and walking away. That's it. That's it. It's wonderful. It saves so much time. They're easy to plant. And as much as I love these wonderful soil blockers, you don't need soil blockers. Make your soil, which is just, some compost with a little bit of green sand. And all you have to do is make a snowball when you were 5. Put your seeds right in there, and that's it. And they will do just fine. So those are the soil blocks. Super eco-friendly. The other way I do, especially for plants that have a long taproot, or that I don't think any plant technically really likes to get disturbed roots. I know I don't like to get disturbed roots. Is wool pots. Now, these were the things that really I was lost. I'll tell you, I was putting things in burlap, growing them out in the field, but I needed something to put my seedlings in that wouldn't get root disturbance, for them to really, there's nothing like putting a coneflower in the ground that's this high. It's very satisfying. And I couldn't find anything. Well, I stumbled on wool pots in the UK, and they have been a game changer. I sow especially things like lupin that have a deep taproot. All my bacteria start their life directly in a wool pot. They're never in a soil block. They go right into the wool pot. The thing that I have loved about these, other than their slug and snail repellent or deterrent possibilities, is that they use less water. 30% less water. They're air pruned. The wool fertilizes them. Just like if you put wool in your garden soil, the microbes just go nuts. It's like you've thrown out the buffet and they just come running. It's amazing. And there's no plastic in them. So they're also easier to plant. Your hori knife or your little trowel, pull it in, plunk them in, and in they go. And you leave the little lip up, and the slugs and snails don't get it. Now, when I saw the thing about the slugs and snails, I will tell you, who has slug and snail problems? Where are my slug people? Ah, there you are. I was a little not buying the whole slug thing. What do? Go out there and yell at them. Get off that plant. Please. So I did an experiment where I put the same seedling, same stock, everything of coneflowers, which slugs love baby coneflower leaves, purple coneflowers, Echinacea propia. I put a 1-gallon pot, put them out there in a 1-gallon pot. I put one out in a terracotta pot, and I put out a little wool pot. And I put them in what I call affectionately slug alley, which is by the pine tree. You can see the slugs coming out, the snails coming out from under this pine tree. Why do I leave it? It's bird food. It's bird food. So I said, well, sacrifice some plants. I came out the next morning, the poor purple coneflower, the Echinacea propia in the pot was gone, right down to its root, and had so much slug snail trails on it. It was sad. It was very, very sad. I apologized. I was really hopeful, but even like the crown of the plant was gone. The one in the terracotta pot had some leaves munched, lots of snail trails. It had one little tiny baby leaf on it. I rescued it and said, no, you shall not die today, my friend. And I put it over in the nursery area in a nice little sunny spot where it could get TLC. The one in the wool pot had one leaf that was kind of abundant, partied down, decided to live wild and free, and was over by the grass. That was the only leaf that was touched. The plant was perfectly fine. No slug trails on it. There were some people, there must have been some brave slugs that went, I'm going to touch it anyway, and decided not to go up it. and that kind of made it easier. The other thing I noticed when, I talked about plastic pots with heat. Ever have a plastic, you brought home your plants? Maybe you forgot them on the deck. I've done that. If you saw the piles of plant bodies behind me, where it's hot and your poor plant is really suffering from the heat, the wool pots were 50% cooler, were 5% cooler temperature. We had the drought this summer, was the real test of the wool pots, and I called Graham and Tom, who are the creators of wool pots. And I said, what are you putting? There's gotta be something besides wool. Now I'm convinced. And they said, why? I said, we've had 12 weeks of drought with the temperatures in the 90s. The plant that I had in a terracotta pot that I had babied was just suffering, and she wouldn't sleep. The wool pots that were on the picnic tables in the nursery were fine. I watered them once a week. I didn't increase any watering, and they were just fine. It was amazing. And they told me that the Eden Project has done some research that showed that the wool, think of a sheep, in the summer, the sheep inside is cool. And in the winter, they're warm. It's the same thing with the wool pot. So it's kind of interesting. I don't know all the science about it, but I absolutely were thrilled that I didn't have 250 pots on the table done from the thing. It was a really great thing. So I bought, again, with the soil blocks and everything, you bottom water if you grow seeds from plants from seeds. This is a big deal. Water from the bottom, not the top. All the nutrients, the roots go down, super happy. You leave, between the soil blocks and the wool pots, you want to leave air. Plants need air. They don't need to be drowned. That was a big learning thing. Once they're planted, those soil blocks, because they're air pruned, the roots just take off. They just take right off. The same thing with the wool pot, and the wool pot decomposes in 6 weeks. And you'll notice, I've noticed that the plant just is so happy. Where other ones before, I compared the photographs and went, that's a big difference. That's a really big difference. So those are the two things, the first two things that I use. The second thing for seed sowing is just so simple. And this is from old, pre-plastic, wooden trays out of scrap wood. Don't use pressure treated. I don't use pressure treated. I put the soil in there. I'll direct sow, or I'll put the soil blocks in there, especially for plants that are a little finicky and they want more attention. Vegetables, you grow lettuce in those, wonderful, absolutely super easy to make. There's a video you can get, I can put a link to. And the nice thing I've discovered, because I still go to my friends' nurseries, I still support my friends. I don't grow petunias. I love petunias. I take my wood trays and I go and I get my petunias and I take them. She's so patient with me. I take them out of the plastic containers and put them into the trays. And so it's super wonderful, and they look so pretty. They just look like they're natural, as they should. And you can directly, the other thing I do is I still directly sow. I'll be winter sowing this Saturday live on YouTube. That's going to be an adventure. Just throwing the seeds in the garden. The aster seeds is what I'm going to be doing. I just throw them right in the snow. It's going to be 43 and sunny on next Saturday.
Drain holes in.
Do I have drain holes
in the
wood
bottom
tray?
of the trays?
In the wood trays, no. I just take 1x4s by 10 by 20, and I screw them all together. And then the same thing, I just butt them up end to end. Water's gonna find the weakest link.
And just.
Yep, and then I have an old enamel basin or a wash tub. So when I water, when they're seeds, I'll mist them from the top. But once they're little seedlings, I still don't want to disturb them. I take the whole tray and I put it in the wash tub for 5 minutes. And then I pull it out. And then the water just goes right into the garden. And that's it. Yep.
Quick question, would you ever snip a little bit of bulb underneath the wool bags?
Nope.
Nope.
Nope, because there's already the weave. I guess it's a special weave. So there's oxygen going in there, and they're just gonna do what they do. The wool's gonna biodegrade all on its own. Yep. And it lets water through, and you're watering from the bottom anyway. So the wool and soil pulls up water. It's gonna pull
I
up
just
water.
didn't know if any of the roots might grow through the bottom before it disintegrates.
Nope, it gets air pruned. The roots, they'll hit the air. You'll see them sticking out of
Okay,
the wool pot and they air prune themselves. So they split, they divide and conquer the whole wool pot. It's great. And when you, I'm just silly. I should come with a warning. And the other thing that I don't see a lot of people doing, when you direct seeds, you can also sow your seeds in a terracotta pot. There's nothing wrong with that. And how pretty is that? The other thing is cold frames. I don't know where cold frames went. You can build a cold frame from this big to the length of this room. With old windows, you don't need plastic. Rescue some old windows, put them on there. You can grow here in central New York. I know people who are growing vegetables all winter. They don't understand why I went out and bought spinach. Why don't you just put it in your cold frame? They're wonderful and they're very easy to do. Scrap wood is everywhere. You just don't want to use pressure treated. This image here is actually from Mother Earth News. It has a wonderful article about how to make the wood trays. And they're pretty. They're just so much pretty. So creating garden beds. Pardon?
You have a wood tray.
Oh, yes, I do have a
For
wood
those
tray.
who are in.
Yes, there's a wood tray. It's actually, I didn't make that one. It's an old wine box. That I said, ooh,
Okay.
wood, I'll take it. I've had to fight my family for that box because it had a lid. It was very pretty. So if you've started a garden, who started their own garden beds? So when I did my garden beds, I did landscape fabric. And I laid it out, black landscape fabric, brick, plastic. Because that's what they tell you to do. And well, it killed the soil, microbes, it killed all the weeds. And then I went out and I dug up all the weeds with a pitchfork. I hand dug the bed because I didn't want to till. I didn't want to till. Well, I had no life in that poor soil, but I did have a lot more weeds. And that was when I found out, where are all the worms? There were all these worms in here before. Where are all my worms? And it was a lawn. This was a lawn area on the west side of the house. And I found new weeds, which was really interesting. I'm not sure who they are, but they're very interesting. They look like little mini tumbleweeds. And they're not native because I put them on the app because I was curious. They're an invasive. So now what do? What I do is I'll do a light till. I do not use cardboard because I don't know what's in cardboard. I don't want to smother the soil microbes. I want to feed them. So I'll do a very light till, only an inch. And I will go with my garden fork or my hoe that has an angle on it. I get it from Gardener's Workshop, not to plug anybody. But Gardener's Workshop's the only place I can find it. It has an angle on it. So when you hoe with it, if you have a traditional garden hoe and you're going like this, you just stand like this. You don't even sweat. And you're not digging up the weed bed. It's amazing, just amazing. I use burlap now. If I want to kill a weed bed, I'll use burlap. Back in the day, they used newspaper, but we don't have newspapers anymore, unfortunately. The other thing I do is I grow a living mulch instead of wood chips. I don't want anything, wood chips are happening already in my garden. I don't want to smother that in microbes. So I let the plants, we're on to habitat gardening. The plants do all the work. They're going to mulch it. They're going to create life in there. So I let them do their job, and my job is to get out of their way. And then the living mulch, what I often use is, I'll use sweet Elysium. I have not found a native plant that I could put in there for a living mulch on it, like a living pathway. So instead of a dirt, open, exposed, nature does not want bare soil. I grow sweet Elysium because it dies off and I can stamp on it and the bees like it. I can till it in. And the other thing I use is cover crop. You can cover crop in a small garden. In spring, I use peas and oats, and I use Felicia, bee's friend. I just go on and walk on it or have my friend's daughter come over and roll down the garden. This garden here is with the purple cone flowers. This is how I started. This is one garden I started that way. So these plants were planted in the fall. This is in the spring of their first year. Their first year, they tripled in size. By the end of August, they were blooming. And they look like that. They are now this tall. I was just talking to Ruth, maybe we have to give them Chelsea a chop or something. And then I plant tight. When everybody comes over to my farm to help me plant, they're always surprised, well, don't you need a foot, 16 inches? And I don't know only if I like to weed. I put everything 8 to 12 inches apart. And just cram everybody in there. It's not like soup. You can take things out. So that's what I try to remember. You can take things out. So this is what my old hoop house used to look like. Isn't it cute? It was fun. It had a germination table in it, so there's plastic there. There's landscape fabric on the bottom. It's taken me 2 years to fix the soil, by the way. I had the metal hoop and the foam for the protecting of the precious plastic. That was all given to a friend of mine. I don't use that anymore. Instead, I just say, well, it's April and the plant should only be this big. It's not supposed to look like it looks like in July. That was a hard lesson because I took plants in the pots, I put them into the hoop house so that they would be more what everybody expected in May. Lush, beautiful plants. And those plants died. They died. I'm done. And they went dormant. They were just done. And that was the last time. That's when I took down the hoop house 2 years ago. So instead of the hoop house, I just grow in the cold frames. Or I use muslin over the garden, over the seed beds or whatever. I don't use row covers. Row covers are great for home gardeners because if you have a plant that is maybe getting nibbled on too many people and it can't support that many insect people, you can cover it with a row cover and keep the insects off it until it's able to support them, right? Well, those are plastic. So back before plastics, guess what they use? Sheets. Just plain cotton sheets. Muslin, you can get a bolt of muslin and use that as well. If you have tomatoes or other crops, like maybe you have some purple cone flowers, which is, the ambassador of native plants, right? That maybe you don't want anybody eating, like the slugs or whatever, you can use hot caps. And hot caps don't get enough credit. They are just paper with a natural wax coating over them. You put the soil until the plant is able to kind of heat up, and you can plant in like March, April in them, and then keep reusing them. Cold frames, of course, I use those a lot. The burlap, I wouldn't be anywhere without burlap. I will tell you, the burlap, which is here, replaces, are you ready for the miracle of burlap? You can get free burlap, by the way, in central New York at the Paul de Lima. Call them and say you need some coffee bags. Yeah, for free. And you get coffee. That's great. So this is burlap. I got a roll of it from Joann's when they went out of business. It's only burlap. There's no coating on it. You want to make sure it's just natural jute, natural fiber. It shouldn't feel like waxy when you put your hands on it. So burlap I use for row covers, weed barriers. During the drought out in the field, I had straw flowers growing and some seedlings. I used it as a shade cloth with just some sticks. You don't need to buy hoops. Buy seeds, not paraphernalia with like the hoops and everything. Sticks, just sticks holding it up during the heat of summer in August. And then when I took it off, guess who landed on it? The hummingbirds and the dragonflies who happened to eat the deer flies. So it was a win-win for me. It was great. I also use it instead of a plastic dome. If you've grown your own seeds, you can ditch the plastic domes too. And you'll save what $250 they are now, $275, and just cover your seedlings with it. And it holds in the moisture just fine. You can even mist it. Wonderful stuff. And if you have a party at the last minute, like we did last summer, we had a garden club come and we did catering. I put the tables under the maple trees and I ran burlap right down the tables and put some jars of flowers up. It was beautiful. Super, get burlap. The other thing is that, you know, plastics are gonna creep in everywhere. You'll be, once you start looking at them in horticulture, you're gonna be shocked where you see them and come up with really creative ways to do that. And then these are my favorite easy tips if you're just gonna begin without getting overwhelmed with getting rid of the plastic. You can ask your local independent favorite nurseries if they will take back the plastic pots. Will they take back the carriers? You might not need the carrier because you're gonna bring a laundry basket or something cute to put your plants in. Ask them if they'll take them back to reuse them. And that's the trick. You wanna make sure they're gonna reuse them. You don't wanna see them in a trash bin, but if you're, you know, I'm preaching to the choir. Independent local nurseries is like our sing song. Bring your own carriers, bring baskets, paper boxes, or pretty wood trays. There's a woman who comes to the farm, you know where she puts her plants? She puts them in old sneakers. She lines the back of her car up with old sneakers and boots and puts her plants in them because then they don't fall over. I thought it was just brilliant. When you gift plants, I know everybody loves to share, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to give someone a plant, right? What if instead of a plastic pot, you took the herbal plant from your garden and you wrapped it in 100% cotton calico print fancy fabric with a cotton ball? Instant joy. And I don't know, you might not get rid of it because it's so pretty.
All I can think of is the restoration and thrifty shoppers.
Yeah, just make sure it's 100%
Yeah.
cotton, doesn't have, or old cotton sheets or whatever. Craft paper, you could stamp on it and make it so pretty. Wax paper, I get wax paper from I Care, if you care. That is 100% natural. The other thing is to get rid of the, you're gonna not like this one. If you get compost from a municipal compost site or from a landscaping company, you wanna ask where the compost is from. Or make your own. It's hard to make your own and make enough. But we don't need gardens. Remember, there's this thing now, we know that we don't need garden beds filled with compost. We need to use our native soil that we already have. Add a little bit of compost, but we don't need, 10 feet of compost to plant our plants. But you want to make sure that, especially with municipal compost, there's a lot of nanoplastics in there. Forks, knives, and this is from my experience. That was cleaned compost, blades, metal blades, things like that. So you want to really be careful. The other thing is that instead of like netting, so if you have some plants you don't want, maybe you have berry bushes you're growing for the first time, winter berry especially, and maybe you don't want the deer to come along and eat them. Put up some sticks with some jute twine and plant some Monarda near there. And they don't like that. Well, I don't know, your deer here in the city are punks. But you can use natural plant supports instead of getting rebar and these plastic hoops or all these other things. Instead of going about, just get some sticks and some jute twine. Make sure your jute twine doesn't have plastic in it. Look at the label. If it says poly, it has plastic in it. I use Nutseam. I get it from the home of the brave. And what's the other one? Think outside the plant pot. Just let your imagination kind of, take over. Pretend if you have to. If you find it hard to be creative, it's a practice. Once you start, it's like playing baseball when you were a kid. Once you practice more, you get better at it, right? Little by little, or learning a new recipe, anything new. So if you let yourself pretend that you are 5, and there are no mistakes, there is no judgment, you can get really, really creative. And when you get those creative ideas, I beg you to please call me and let me know. Please, please, please. So this was one day I had some heuchera that I had dug up and I didn't have I didn't want to put back in the garden. I wasn't sure what to do with it. And well, you have to go somewhere. You cannot sit here on the potting bench. And so I made a cocoon. I took the heuchera, wrapped it in muddy soil. So there's the 5-year-old grin. And I took moss that I already had and I just wrapped it. And I wrapped it with twine. And then I made this really cute cotton little thing with it. It was just 2 knots. We stuck the ball in there and they did great. They were so pretty. I put fairy lights on them one night and they were just so cute. The bluebirds in the garden really like those. So that's what I mean. Get creative. You're not gonna hurt anything. Well, maybe the people selling plastics.
What about using like horse manure?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There should be. I should hope that horses don't eat, plastic. But I use, for manure, I use rabbit.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I just sprinkle it on. A friend of mine has it. I'm kind of trying to convince her to have it at the nursery this spring. She raises rabbits.
So now I gotta go out and chase the rabbits. Poop over here.
Yeah, there was a pile by the bird feeder the other day and I went, oh, thank you, right by the roses.
Repeat what you just said about the rabbit?
About the rabbit poo?
Yeah.
Rabbit poo is, because, okay, everybody's had lunch, so we can talk about it. So rabbits eat their poo the first time around, right? And the second time it comes out, it is really digested, it's super stuffed. So it won't burn your plants. And a little goes a long way. I mean, I'm talking like a little pinch. A pinch for like a 2-foot space. Does wonders, absolutely wonders. Yeah,
Worm castings are good too.
worm castings are good. And you want to make sure when you get worm castings, they're not in plastic. So if you can get your own worm farm.
Yeah.
Or like a friend of mine in Virginia has, she's a flower farmer down there. They have a group of 10 gardeners. And the worm farm is at one of their houses. And they all bring their scraps. It's gotta be the happiest worms ever. Because one of them owns a coffee shop. So they do the worm castings that way. Because once soil, like when you go out and you get your potting mix or whatever, once that goes in the plastic, there's no air in there, friends. There's no life in there anymore. And it's sterilized. I don't know about you, I don't want anything sterile in my garden. I want the bugs, I want it to smell. It needs to stink. Cause I end up stinking. If you've been to the farm, you've seen me on those days. So yeah, I use that. Goat manure is very good. The problem is, I think I read somewhere, but the horse manure is that a lot of the straw has herbicides in it. And because it's not like a cow or other ruminant that it goes through, you could find that as a problem. So you want to make sure that that is really, really composted somewhere far away from your garden. Yeah.
What about deer poop?
Deer poop? Oh, you guys got it everywhere. Figure out how to collect it and sell it, it would be great. I don't know about the deer poop, other than it looks very similar to rabbit poop.
Right.
What is now the meadow walk, what we call the meadow walk on the west side of the farm, is where the deer come up. So it follows the natural deer path. And those plants that are in there are doing pretty good. I can tell you that. There's lots of deer poop over there.
I never take it out of the garden.
Think about herbicides, because deer that browse on golf courses and some lawns that are. And
Yeah,
where they're getting it.
yeah, yeah, everybody eats in our gardens and it's all gonna come up somewhere. So I wanna be careful what you spread.
Get your wool pots. I missed that.
The wool pots, I get them from the UK. I'm the only place, because they love me. Tom and Graham and I, we just kind of clicked. We were on the first time we talked and I was being an inquisitor for over an hour. I really wanted to know all that. Give me the stuff you don't tell people, Graham. And I'm the only place in the United States to get them.
I think expensive.
Yeah, no, they're not. No,
Do you think you could use socks though, wool socks or
I think the weave on a sock is really heavy. I did try it. It did not work out well.
Oh, okay.
And you don't know what's in them. They could say 100% wool, but you don't know what they've, they're better for your feet or mittens. And I don't know how fast they would biodegrade.
Oh,
You know, wool is a wonderful, wonderful thing, and if you can find someone who raises sheep and get a hold of some of their raw, uncleaned wool to put into your garden soil, it's an amazing thing. It really is an amazing.
How about llama for?
It's still wool, it's still wool, yep. Might be an expensive way to go with the llama. Yes, ma'am.
So can we get those wool pots from you? You sell those?
Yeah, they're on my website.
Okay.
Yeah, they're on my website.
And what kind of soil do you use in the seed box?
Oh, and this, I use compost that I get. Can I plug something?
Yeah.
I get my compost by the yard. Because I just can't. I'm still building beds. And I'm potting up plants, so I get it by the yard. I get it from Melanie Nursery. Because I call it drunken brew. I know that's not the name of it. It's from the hops from Budweiser, and that's all that's used in it. There's nothing else put into that compost. So I don't have to worry about herbicides, plastic, finding blades like I did before. And it's wonderful, wonderful stuff. What I do for the soil blocks is there's a lot of soil block recipes out there. And I find the more complicated they are, I find that those aren't just for me. I set them lace with a good one. Like Elliot Coleman, wonderful, wonderful renowned scientist, has a wonderful recipe. I need to keep it simple because I'm growing grow wraps. So one of the bamboo trays holds 120 seedlings. I've got 3 racks that are full. So I use just the compost mixed with a little bit of fresh worm castings that have not been in the plastic. And I use green sand, just a pinch of green sand, which it's like a binder, it's like a flowery type of reaction. And you make it so it's wet like brownie mix. And then this spring in April, I will have a couple days where I'm gonna invite people to come help me with soil blocks.
You need to get our hands dirty.
Yes, filthy. Oh, I was gonna put it on the slide too. There's a photograph of me in the back of my son's truck shoveling manure. That's usually what I look like. I see my friends here. You know that this is as clean as I've ever been. My family says when they get a hold of my hat, they're gonna bury it and plant something really fabulous there.
So did you just describe your growing medium as compost with sand?
Well, that's for soil blocks. I use compost and then I put in, for the soil blocks, I put in a pinch of green sand. I put in a little bit of fresh worm castings, but it's like a little pinch because they don't do a lot.
But regular soil?
Regular compost,
Just compost.
just compost. Yep, maybe sifted to get the big stuff out of there. But yeah, there's a really good soil blocking.
No vermiculite, perlite or any of that?
No, what's it called? Blossom and Branch Farm has a really good recipe.
Can you repeat again where you got the source for the compost?
For the compost.
And say it into your thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, everybody online. The compost I get here in central New York is from Lasnicki Landscaping Company in Hastings. That compost is from hops from Budweiser. They're certified to carry it. And so there's nothing added. There's no herbicides. There's no nothing. I affectionately call it drunken brew. I don't know if Andy likes that or not, but that's what I call it.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And you just said blossom and branch, which is like the recipe I use.
Yes.
And I think, but doesn't she, what do you think about, I had cocoa core. What are your thoughts on that? Do you use the I use that, I use raw wool.
Yeah.
It is gone through the
Yeah.
blender, people, I don't use my food in it. It's just
I say give your family some extra fiber.
because it goes a long way, the raw
Yes.
wool.
It does.
So you don't need the cocoa, or,
The coconut coir?
yeah.
No, I would much rather buy, if I want to spend money on seeds from the Wild Seed Project, than I would buy coconut flour or bagged soil or anything like that.
Okay.
I mean, when I got the green sand, it's a 20-pound bag. It was $14. At my local Agway, it was the last bag. I said, oh my God, I'll take the whole thing. It has lasted me 4 years. It's still full.
What about grit? Do you ever add grit to the top?
No, because in the compost that I get, it's already got little pieces of bark of something in there that kind of aerates it. You know, I don't sift it. I just throw it in there, mix it in. For the soil blocks though, Brianna, it does have that great recipe.
Mhm.
That is a really, really good recipe.
Holds well.
It holds very, very well. I know she uses wool pellets.
And that's what I took. from her.
Yeah.
Otter Farm in
Mhm.
Weedsport, Farmview, but Weedsport.
Yes,
They sell pellets at the regional market in the. South.
yes,
And
she's
you just
wonderful.
collect them. And put them in the blender
Yep,
and break, and it goes a long.
it goes a
it's
very
expensive,
long
but
way.
If you prep it in the winter, you can just dry it and it's fluffy and then
Yeah.
you can mix it in and it's like
Yeah.
a food with
Yeah.
the soil.
Yep, and it's really, once you start using the soil blocks, you kind of know the consistency. You kind of figure out what the plants want. Some plants don't want a lot of moisture, especially some native plants. They don't want a lot of moisture, so maybe I wouldn't use the wool pellets in there. But I make sure that I give lots of drying time. You know, I think that's a lot of problem that I had when I first started sowing seed was I was drowning my poor plants with love and affection and the water can. And now with the soil blocks, I let them dry out for 24 hours and then tea time. Every Monday is gnat control. Mondays where I put in the mosquito dunks the night before on Sundays, and then they get watered with that to get the gnats out, because gnats will eat your seedlings. They come in the soil. So you have to immediately start watering with this. So once a week they get that. On Fridays, if I'm gonna fertilize anybody, it's fertilizer Fridays with Coast of Maine. Seaweed and fish emulsion. But I have noticed I have not had to fertilize as much anymore. Yeah.
Can you repeat again? Excuse me. Can you
Yes.
repeat again? Who's the recipe you use for the soil?
Oh, the recipe that I first used was from Blossom and Branch Farm in Colorado. She's zone 5 dry. And her name is Brianna Grosh, I believe. She's got a great YouTube channel. Oftentimes we're on the same wavelength and I've talked to her and it's just wonderful. She's got a wonderful flower farm up there. She uses a lot of wool. And wood trays, you can use wool too. Before you put in we should probably do a workshop on that, burning of the wood trays. Line it with wool and then put your soil in that holds the moisture, so you don't have to water your plants as much. And that's how I've gotten rid of plastic at the farm. So far, so good. Yes, ma'am.
I'm trying to cover the ground with perennials like wild strawberry and the phlox de varicata that I got from you. But I have a problem both with sun and deer. And I have not been sure. I've used some hardware cloth and I have it now in small places, so I don't have a whole lot of it to cover, but do you think burlap would do the trick and I could put it on sticks or somehow prop it up above?
To keep it away from the deer,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's gonna be it's worth a try. I mean, Ruth, your deer are punks. And here in the city, it's incredible. It's just absolutely incredible. But it's something that would be different for them, you know?
Yeah.
So have a go. What's the worst that's gonna happen? They're gonna eat the burlap. You know, it'll be, have a go. Why not? Why not? You know, and the other thing with deer is that they're like horses. They don't like where they stop.
Right.
And they don't like where they
They
stop.
don't like things that smell.
They don't like things that smell. So somebody said, boy, you got a real thing with bee balm. Oh yeah, it's everywhere because it keeps the deer out of where I don't want them to go. But the other thing is that in my gardens, you'll see, especially with the flowers that they like, you'll see I'll put the jute twine, I'll put sticks in, and I make like a cat's cradle. And if I don't want them coming down the aisles, well, the cat's cradle goes there, so I get a lot of exercise. Stepping over the cat's cradle.
Mountain mint works real great too, if you haven't.
It does. Mountain mint is like wonderful.
Stuff.
I have it near the purple cone flowers. And there's another one that my few deer that I have actually like.
It smells great.
The asters, they like the young asters. I put the mountain mint there and they do really well.
But it
They don't go
smells
near it.
Amazing.
Yeah,
This to it, it smells
Yeah.
amazing.
it's amazing.
My old house was in the woods and I tried to garden and deer were terrible. And I had 2 little boys and I sent them out, go pee the perimeter. Pee on the perimeter, and it's like once a week trying to keep them
Yeah.
out, and
Yeah,
it had some effect.
Yeah.
Because they grew up and stopped doing that, and I was like, what are they doing there on my porch?
my father-in-law used to use, you could always tell when you were coming close to the house because there were pie cans tied to strings. And the wind would climb them,
Bang 'em.
and that kept the deer out of his gardens, but
But you have to change up.
you gotta keep them hopping.
We have a question from online.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask it, and then you can face that.
Okay.
Answer. So the question is, are you concerned about transferring invasive soil organisms from your native soil when selling your dug plants?
Oh, that is a great question.
Could you repeat that? Is it?
What was the other?
Are you concerned about transferring invasive soil organisms from your native soil when selling your dug plants? Yeah.
So,
Like jumping worms.
oh, yes.
Not.
The jumping worms are something that I have actually thought of that I would probably be the only plastic exception because I would make people wear booties. Where I am, I don't have jumping worms yet. I am very vigilant. I also have chickens that I think they go for worms left and right. And I think if I had jumping worms, they'd be ecstatic and take care of the problem shortly. But yes, I am very concerned about that. So one of the things I learned early on was from perennial farmers who grow in the field. That was the only thing I could find was people who are growing cultivated plants. And then they dig them like irises. I grow irises as well. They're the money backbone of the farm, so I can play and not have to care about money for other things. But what they do is when they dig up their plants like an iris, they brush off all the soil off of the roots. They get a nice little dip and some fertilizer, and then they pot them up into the new soil. And that's what I do. And in the spring, I get a mud bath, the plants get a mud bath. On my potting bench, which is actually an old work table in the barn, I will have a wash tub, an old metal wash tub. And I will have an enamel bowl. So the plants, when they get dug out, I want my soil where the plants are in the field to stay there. That's its job. I want those microbes to stay in their home where they're welcome and cozy and their friends are. I mean, there's a science to all this, but in my mind, it's easier to put it in this way that we can understand, right? So I want the soil microbes to stay there with the other plants that are still there and supporting those plants. So in the spring, I'll go out and I'll dig an enamel basin. I bring it up into the barn, and then the plants get a first wash, and then they get a second wash, and then they get planted into the wool pots. Or if they're big, say a 2-year-old plant who's got a root system this big, they get wrapped in burlap with soil, with the compost. And then they get their wooden plant tag and off they go home. I am very concerned about things coming, I'm more concerned with things coming on my farm. I am very, very fortunate that my wonderful, wonderful neighbors who are so supportive with the opening weekend, the cars lining my rural road. I'm in a very rural area. That they don't spray. I know that is very, very rare. I have no one spraying or anything like that. We have fireflies and birds and all sorts of wonderful things. But I am very concerned about like jumping worms coming on somebody's shoe or microbes coming into the soil. So I don't do a lot of, where people can just go anywhere. Like I don't let anybody just go in the backfield. They ask permission, and sometimes if it's someone new that has not been to the farm yet, I'll ask if they have jumping worms. I'll ask them, do you have jumping worms? Oh, you're in the city, or you're here or there. Do you have jumping worms? And if they say they have jumping worms, I have to not let them into the backfield. I just can't.
Some people don't know they have them.
Yeah, they just have no clue. So the jumping worms are a real problem, and the soil microbes and diseases. I'm very picky. Last year, potting up plants was a lot. It was great fun, but it was a lot. And if I hadn't had family help and my friend Mary helping me, I probably would have been eating a lot more cookies. In the barn, in the back room, hidden. I was very concerned about having somebody come in to help me. For years, I didn't have any help because I didn't want someone coming in and transplanting, diseases and stuff into the plants and then having them go home. I'm really lucky also that our nursery inspector, Dorothea, is phenomenal. And anybody who's listening who has a nursery in Central New York knows who I'm talking about. She answers lots of questions about stuff like that.
Yeah, one more question, from online, they wanted to know where you got I think. Oh,
I'm okay.
Oh,
I'm good. We're good.
I didn't do that. Where you got these?
They're not soil blocks.
Soil blocks.
So soil blockers are a lot of different places. I got these from Fruition Seeds. I'm really big about buying local, Fruition Seeds. I don't know if Fruition still has them or not. They're over here in the Finger Lakes. Wonderful resource. Oh my goodness, Frank. She's the reason I have tomatoes every year. You can also get them from Hudson Valley Seed, who has them as well.
And Amazon.
Yeah. No, I don't do Amazon. I don't do Amazon. I watch, this is my little soapbox. It's not a policy or anything. I want to know that when I go and I spend, this was $75 for these two plus the other one that I have. That $75 is going local. I don't get them from Amazon. And often what happens is you find cute little notes in your orders. Like there was a cute little note in there with a little card, and free seeds. 'Cause I'm all about free seeds.
It's a nice trip to go down there, but when goes,
It-
it's a nice.
Where?
What is it, to a port, to,
Hudson Valley.
Hudson Valley.
Yeah. Hudson Valley Seed is a wonderful, wonderful resource. Doug is great. The Fruition also does workshops. A lot of work on-farm workshops. Where you come and share, I forget where she's, about an hour and a half. Naples.
They're not selling seeds anymore though.
No, you have to go to the events
Yeah.
to get them to, because they have a share economy. But they have wonderful, oh my gosh, if you do anything this summer, go to one of Fruition's workshops.
Fruition.
Fruition
Fruition.
Seeds. Yes,
Maybe
they're
Where is
wonderful.
that?
It's in Naples.
Naples.
It's in the Finger Lakes west of here.
The bottom.
Thank you.
And then, come up to Lazy Dirt. I'm there.
What
If
hours
anything,
do you have?
pardon?
We look online for your hours.
My hours, my hours change because I am very small. I'm what some people would call a backyard nursery. So like I have a picnic table loaded with plants. I have a couple other little tables loaded with plants. They're in my garden. So when someone comes to my farm, I'm welcoming you into my garden. Not so much my nursery, but my garden. So my hours change by season. So in the summer, they're shorter. Even if I'm there, but I have people who will stop by or they'll call ahead of time. Are you home today? Well, yeah, sure, come by. I'm filthy, just want to warn you. And they'll come by. I have a gentleman who comes with his baby every day and naps in this meadow with his baby on a Tuesday when I'm closed. 20 minutes on the way home. I have another woman who stops on her way from upstate home in Alaska every week. And she just needs a refresh before she goes home. And so she just walks the garden and I'll see her coming. I'll hear the car door when she leaves. So, and she has permission, of course, come to the gardens, come enjoy it, but yeah. So the hours change. In the spring, they'll be posted online Thursdays through Saturday. Yeah, and then in the summer, there'll be workshops only on days when I have workshops. Yep.